Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am Game Master Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today's episode is episode 2 of my new series that I entitled "Your Table, Your Dice, and Your Fun." And it's a it's a project that I'm working on, or a series of videos that I'm working on, where I want to encourage people to talk about their previous week's gaming, and to do like recaps or just talk about significant events in gaming that directly impacted themselves or their table, or just things that really came up, positive things that came up, particularly at their table over the previous week. So I did this video, the first one last week. It was really well received. A lot of people liked the idea, and hopefully can continue to encourage people to do more and more of this. So let's talk about our hobby in a positive way and talk about our actual experiences at the table, more so than just whether it be game theory or looking from the perimeter of something, rather than talking about what you're actually experiencing at your own table. So this week is going to be jam packed. So I had two games that one I ran and the other I played in. So every Tuesday night, I run an AD&D First Edition campaign. We just wrapped up session 95 last week. We kind of calculated it out. We've only missed 3 sessions in all of that time. So 3 sessions in roughly 98 weeks, and so we're rapidly approaching our 2 year mark, and it's been going extremely well. And session 95 was really an interesting session, and I'll get into that with you when I do that. So I'm also playing in two other games. So I'm playing in a Wednesday night Castles and Crusades game that alternates every other week. And so this past week was a Wednesday night game. And then I have a Thursday night Castles and Crusades game that also alternates every other week. And that was the one I spoke about last week. So this week is going to be the Wednesday night game. And I'm really looking forward to doing a brief little recap of that, and talking about some of the people that are actually in that game, and how much fun. Now that's only my second session with them, so I'm still kind of learning the people and um, learning how that castle keeper runs his game. But so far really liking it, and starting to really get to like the character that I'm currently playing. So without further ado, let's jump right into the recaps for the week. Okay, I am going to switch views here, and actually, let me go to this here. I was gonna do something else in that moment, but decided to do it this way instead. So, session 95, I had all 7 of my players return. One was away for 3 weeks for vacation and a combination of things going on. And so it was great to have him back because um, he is our fighter magic user, very, very capable character. And, I just hate rolling for him, or hate trying to determine, when he uses spells or not. And so it's really great to have a Malric back. And, he is, I have many, many leaders in my group, in this particular group of AD&D First Edition players. So it's like everyone takes their time to, their moment to step up and kind of take that leadership role. And so like a it really is like running a game for 7 truly experienced players. No one is really um in the background, very much. They all step up from time to time, and it's a great experience. So they are still in the orc lair. I'm sorry, they're still in the orc lair, and they had, as I explained in last week's session, they had stayed overnight, and they set up several traps and everything just in case any kind of wandering monster came in on them. And um they had gotten through that night, really surprisingly. And then they pushed in and they started, they fought some gnolls. They had that was in session 94. And they pretty much made it kind of easy, through that particular portion of the adventure. And then coming into this session, they were going to pick up and they were going to move forward throughout the lair and continue to investigate. And they're searching for one particular orc, for the purposes of killing him, to bring back to, to bring his head back to the town, where they're kind of trying to atone for a mistake that they had made. And they were responsible for the orcs actions in that town. And when the orc had kind of liberated himself um, from the entanglement of an alignment change helm. And actually, another player character actually set that whole thing in motion. And so they had to atone for this. They had two innocent people were killed as a result of it. And so the town magistrate was like, "You have to go out there and you have to bring us back this head in order to redeem yourself." So they end up pushing into this very large um, orc lair. And um, and it's not just simply, a group of eighth level, seven, eighth level player characters steamrolling through an orc lair. This orc lair is heavily organized, jam packed with a lot of encounters, as they've already experienced. And it's been a slog for them. So it really is eye opening as a dungeon master. And I think eye opening for the players as well, to see that, a what would normally be considered a kind of low level encounter um, really does become challenging when you're on their home turf. And I have always treated dungeons as a living environment. In other words, uh, they're they're opening a door and they're not going to see five orcs just sitting there waiting for them to open the door. Um, they might open the door and there's no one currently in there, and then as they pass on through, someone comes through behind them, someone comes in, even though the room itself might have been initially designed to have five orcs in it, or something along the way. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be in there when they first open up the door. They could have been going off and you know dumping the trash and then returning, or whatever. And so I think it's important for you always to make a complex or a dungeon or a lair have that living, breathing aspect to it, and to have a lot of wandering encounters here and there, and just a lot of reaction taking place based on what the players are doing. So anyway, so the players start pushing through, and they're encountering some ogres and some orcs. And um, they it wasn't a large number that they first engaged with, but once again, our critical hits and fumbles were just galore through this particular session. All right, so I believe that overall, there were something like 3 and 3. So there were 3 critical hits scored, and there were 3 fumbles scored during the course of this time. And I am going to say something that, I know a lot of people, don't like to say, like, I think that this is the best way to do something, but, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. And you can take this or leave it. It's entirely up to you. If you are not using a critical hits and fumble chart that has flavored text attached to it, I think that you're really missing out on making the the mere act of rolling a critical hit or a fumble, rolling that natural 20 or a natural one. Um, I really think that you're missing out on getting the most out of that, because it is a combination of a tremendous elation when the players roll it for their characters. They roll a critical hit for their characters, and it's a gasp when they fumble or when a critical hit is rolled against them, and we're all on the edge of our seats to wait to see what the end result is. And so if you're just using it where, oh, you hit for a critical hit, you're going to roll a second damage die, and you leave it pretty much at that, I think that you're losing something from doing that. Or if there's a fumble, it's like, all right, you fumble, and you dropped your weapon on the floor, and you just won't be able to attack the remainder of this round or whatever. I think that there needs to be much more flavor to that. And you can find these critical charts in a variety of places. Like I use, even though I'm playing AD&D First Edition, running AD&D First Edition, I pull the critical charts out of Castles and Crusades. But there are other ones that you can also get. There's a famous one, and I should have really researched this before I got this, but I'm kind of going off the cuff here a little bit. There is one in Dragon Magazine, and I will return next week with the actual Dragon Magazine article, and go over that with you. I have to just make sure that my DVD is still working for that. Find out which one it's in, and I will go over that critical hit and misses chart that is in there as well. So let me continue. Get right back to the recap. So Angus, who was our bard, he scored a critical hit on I want to say it was an ogre, and he just like obliterated him. All right, then Candrius, our paladin, who was already missing an eye from a previous critical hit, ended up getting a critical hit again. This time he was thrust in the chest with a crossbow bolt, as a matter of fact, and it ultimately did 7 points of damage and reduced his constitution by half. All right, which actually resulted in the loss of another 16 hit points of damage on top of that. So this one crossbow bolt not only did its 4 points of regular damage, it did 7 points of critical damage, and then it did an additional 16 points of the reduced constitution bonus. And so it was like, wow, that was a pretty major hit to him. Now, Candrius, the paladin, oftentimes will say, hey, you know what, we should reconsider this, because he has like a -5 armor class, and he usually has his, it makes it even harder to hit him when something is, evil trying to hit him. They have an additional -2 or whatever, and so in many cases, the only thing that does hit him is a natural 20, and so he was kind of like, Listen, this is not for nothing. The only time I get hit, it's always for a critical. When I told him, get rid of some of your armor, and then you won't have to worry about that so much. Maybe the the dice gods will bear you some better fortune when you can get hit by a 17 instead of only a 20. So anyway, so that was the first of the critical hits. Then Breeze, our elven cleric, Bowman, as well. He hit one of the ogres with the same critical hit, right? So he hit that ogre with a lung shot, and that ogre, slightly different in that flavored text. That ogre was going to bleed out um, within 2 rounds. I believe it was 1 to 4 rounds, bleed out within 1 to 4, and I rolled a 2. So he was going to bleed out within 2 rounds. And then we get to the fumbles. So those were the three critical hits rolled, two by players, one by a monster, and then three players rolled fumbles. And this was the fumbles. Amalric ended up fumbling, causing 13 points of damage to himself and blinding himself in one of his eyes. Now, when there's two kinds of eye injuries or three kinds of eye injuries on the critical chart. One is to be blinded in an eye, which a cure blindness will heal. All right, or take care of. There's a blindness in both eyes. Again, you can use one cure blindness to take care of both eyes. And then, like the paladin had suffered weeks ago, there was the eye was completely destroyed, and so that's going to require a restoration spell to restore his eye back to function. So Amalric had fumbled and blinded himself. Then Angus, the bard, had fumbled, causing 13 hit points of damage to himself and bit off his own tongue in the process. So it was probably a stumble and fall, smash, bit off his tongue. Now, for a bard, that means that most of his spell abilities and such are gone, right? He can't play his instrument and sing a song and have the effect of a bard. So here he is with a bit off tongue, and again requires a restoration spell because it was completely destroyed. It wasn't um, just an injury that you can uh, stick it back on again, kind of thing. So it needs a restoration to fix. And then finally, the last of the fumbles was Bernard, who is our cleric thief, and he not only fumbled, so he not only rolled a 1, but then on the fumble chart he rolled a 20, which is an instant death. Now, what I do with the player characters is that when they have an instant death result on the fumble chart, I let them do a system shock check in order to survive. They fail the system shock check, they're dead, right? And if they succeed, they are at 0 hit points, so unconscious and in need of great assistance. So once I had done that, he went down. That was the 21st time that a player character was nearly killed. And then as they were looking to um, as they were looking to get out of the area, because now they have another player character with a severe injury where he cannot do most of his functions, and they started looking to escape. And so they started backtracking, and they were going to go back out the entrance in which they came from. But they had the illusionist. All right, the thief illusionist actually had access to three um, stone shape spells, and so they were going to between him and the druid, they had three stone shaped spells. Actually, I think it was the druid. I'm sorry, and she, that's Leah Sparrow is her character. She was going to seal off the secret entrance that they gained from one section to the other, and then sealed off the other two entrances that they had used prior to that to kind of make it where if there was any kind of a search party for them, they would have to go a roundabout way to get to them. And also, if there was any, like, look for an investigation of what happened to the other two sections of this massive complex, that they'd have a darn of a time trying to excavate through natural rock again in order to get into those areas. But as they were escaping, like I said, a living, breathing complex that they're in, a lair that they're in, they encountered some more, and um, against Breeze, an orc had attacked him and had fumbled. Um, I forget exactly what happened to the orc in that case. Uh, One of the players a crit an orc, killing it outright, like instantly killing it, which usually their attacks do anyway. And then a fumble by Breeze, a our elven cleric, who ended up shooting Candrius, the paladin, by accident. Luckily, he only caused 6 points of damage to him. So, and again, it's because it was a fumble, it acts like a natural 20, so it will hit. And that was the result of the fumble, was to hit the nearest ally. That was reasonably within that area, which he was. So overall, I mean, it was once again a very, very exciting adventure for them, or at least obsession for them, because there was a lot of highs and lows, and just it subverted my expectations, because they they did some things differently than they normally did, and so I was prepared, at least mentally, for them to go in one direction, and they didn't. They went into a different direction, so I had to change up some things and modify on the fly. Um, and then when they decided, much to my surprise, that they were going to, hey, we're just going to head back, because we're all nicked and bruised, and we have two player characters that are not at their full capability. One without an eye, one without a tongue. So we're just going to head back. Now, as always, the world keeps on rolling, even as they are, off doing something else not directly related to it. So that is going to be my thought process over the next couple of days before Tuesday night, to think, well, yeah, how is everything going to advance in that? So really excited about the next session, and as you can see, now this was a longer session than we usually run too, so it was really getting close to that 4 hour mark or whatever, and that's just because I didn't want to end it where we were kind of not at a clear spot where we could have ended it without I didn't want it to end with them inside the place once again. So really great time. Now let me try to shift gears here. So I am going to bring up the other page here, and let me switch so I can do the proper and see. So I'm just going to show this screen here, because I haven't spoken about this yet, and here we go. So here we have. Oh, I was hoping that wouldn't be there. So This is my Wednesday night game, and as you can see, the Lando the Magi is the castle keeper, and then I have the list of the players here. Here I am with Bloodworth, as you can see. I don't know who the other, like I don't know. I know the characters' names. I don't know who actually matches up with the character names, but as you can see, there are some people here. Like Lando has 81 hours in this particular session. Then we have 53, 41, 34, 33. Here I am at my piddly little 9. I don't believe I met either of these two individuals here. I wouldn't think so. Now, I came into this campaign a little bit later than the rest. And, oh, I didn't want it to bring me into it. But I'm really liking the Foundry. The Foundry is really pretty cool stuff. This was our battle map, and so hand drawn battle map, and we're all congregated here. Here is my character, Balthorin, and Balthorin, as you can see, has taken quite a few hit points damage. He's down to 10 from 16. Um, Here is Thorsten, and Thorsten just a little bit hurt. Um, Thasmuid is a fighter. Torsten is a Hessian fought. I don't know what that is. So maybe that's from the player's companion for Castles and Crusades. Like I said, I am a cleric, and then this here is, I can't move her or pull her name. This, I believe, well, this is Julius, and Julius is a paladin. All right, so that's I just cannot pull up her name, or where her current hit points are. She was mounted on a horse. These were two goblins that we had captured, and so let me go through this here, because it was one of my first times actually casting a spell, and I grabbed this new spell. Here's my character, as you can see. So he has a 13 strength, a 16 constitution, and a 17 wisdom. So, and those are all of his primes. He's a human character, and I had cast for the first time a sound burst, and oh my gosh, what an effective spell that was, because uh, he was up against four goblins, two mounted on wargs. So two wargs, four goblins, and he casted that sound blast, and the sound blast did 8 hit points of damage, maximum hit points of damage, killed all four goblins, and just left and then wounded the two wargs. Then he got bitten, all right, and critically hit by the warg. Fortunately, he took minimum damage from the double rolls, and only ended up getting, or I should say, minimal damage, and only ended up taking 8 hit points of damage. Fortunately, he's second level, so he actually survived that. And Castles and Crusades does not use the, if you take one half your total hit points in a single shot, you have to roll a system shock check. So then I was kind of ticked off, and I was like, all right, I'm going to fight back. I'm not going to waste my last spell of healing yet. I'll wait to see if somebody else is in worse shape than I am. And so I attacked the warg that attacked me, and I attacked him and missed him twice. He was finally killed, I believe, by Thorsten, and then Torsten. Sorry, and then I then turned and attacked the second warg a single time. So 3 times that I attacked, I missed every single time. I was like, this is ridiculous. I was rolling horrible. At least I wasn't fumbling, thankfully, but just rolling horrible. And then um, finally, I hit and I killed one of the wargs, and then the second, and that was with that was with a critical hit. And so with that critical hit, I had done 17 points of damage to it, killing it. So I felt redeemed, or vindicated. That I was like, all right, I finally was uh, much more effective in a fight. Even though, like I said, my sound burst killed four goblins all in one shot, but I really wanted to prove myself on the battlefield and melee combat as well. So, so this particular adventure, we're kind of supporting a town that and we have that. Do we have the town here? Yeah. So this is where we were fighting. Right along this this line over here. Well, I can't unpause it. I guess only the game master could unpause it. But this was the group that we were fighting. So you could see this was the group that came at us, and then this was the other group that the paladin ended up engaging. And so we were up against one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine goblins and three wargs. So pretty challenging for a small group, and we're all second level, or some of the other characters might be third level. Um, so really cool encounter. We're kind of defending. We're kind of doing like the Seven Samurai / Magnificent Seven kind of thing, of just trying to help fortify this small village, since they've been raided constantly by this particular. Oh, wrong map. They've been raided constantly by this particular group of goblins. So anyway, I'm going to switch. Sorry about that, back and forth between the different screens. So really cool week. Really enjoyed myself with it, both as a game master and as a player. Um, Again, even if you're in these kind of these sessions that are very combat focused, um, there's a lot more nuance that can be added in from just different systems that you use. And you should never try to let it just be about rolling dice and the results of those rolling dice. You should always try to change things up and make the players think a little bit, add that flavored text of critical hits and critical fumbles. Think about implementing consequences for even the little actions that they do, and have that dungeon, or that lair, or whatever they're in, have that environment react in some way to what they're doing, and just constantly keep the whole world in motion around what the players are doing. And it'll make it much more interesting for you. It'll make it hopefully much more interesting for them too. It will add certain elements of unpredictability. It will add uh, elements of consequence, which I think are so important in in a campaign, especially in a long running campaign, to have that sense of, well, your actions or inactions are going to have consequences, both positive and negative, that that you might not realize in the moment, but you're going to realize it at some point over time. It's going to come back to you again, either as a positive or a negative. And I think that that's one way that you can make this. Oh, this was just a simple fight between a bunch of adventurers against a group of orcs, and it doesn't have to remain that simple. You can add all kinds of elements to role playing, to that actually make the players feel like the world is real, that their characters are adventuring in. And so that's my big advice for you, is to is if your game is heavily combat focused, don't fall into the belief that that's all that it needs to be. Try to go beyond that. So anyway, I rambled on a little bit there at the end. Thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. I fell a little bit behind on my videos, so I'm going to probably produce like 3 videos today, and then another one will go up later on today, and then the third that I do today will actually appear tomorrow morning. So as always, thanks for joining. Have a great rest of your weekend, and keep those dice rolling. Tell me some stories about your table and the fun that you're having within our hobby. And as always, thanks for joining. Take care.